Let's talk a little bit about the PDO mapping now. So what you can do in the PDO mapping and where to apply the changes. PDO mapping is where you define what you want to get presented from the sensor when it delivers the process data to your application. We have built it up so we have two entries as default that are active. In entry 1 we have the pressure. It can be represented in different formats, but standard is like a float 32 or an integer 32. Then on entry 2, we have decided to place the ASIC temperature, which means an internal temperature of the sensor, which can be used to tell something about whether the sensor is operating under safe conditions where it can perform as it should. Another thing that you can actually set up is of course then the unit for each of the parameters here I just mentioned, where there are several choices. And in order to know where to look it up, I will go back to the communication tool now. Under the communication segment, this is where the PDO mapping is placed. I will go and look it up here. So this is the 1A00. The first one you can read is the number of entries. I just explained that this has been set up for 2 entries right now, so the last 2 will be empty. But if I read it, I get 2, so this makes sense. Entry number 1, if I read that one, I get a hex code that tells me 630.00120. Going back and looking into the operational guides under the PDO mapping, I can now go and look up this code, which tells me here now this is a float 32, like I just said. So this means the pressure represented in a float 32. I can perform the same now for entry 2. So reading the value here gives me a hex code here that I can look up in the operational guide, which is telling me this is the temperature represented as a float 32. We have also decided to place some status information into the PDO here. So this means, or more specifically said, we have a status for the pressure that will tell you whether you are in the operating range of the sensor or not. So if you are outside, either below or higher, you will get a flag that will tell you so. The same goes for the temperature. So the temperature has been defined for a specific temperature range it can operate under. And as soon as you get below or higher than the highest specified temperature, you will get a warning signal. And this can be part of your PDO mapping as well. The last thing I want to mention here under the PDO mapping is the unit setting. So for each of the measurement values, pressure and temperature, you can of course choose between different settings on units. This can be found in the operational guide, where you can find the different codes telling you what you have to write in order to get PSI, bar, Pascal, and so on for the pressure, or degrees C, degrees Fahrenheit, Kelvin for the temperature. Jumping into the device explorer again, I can show you where this setting actually can be applied. So this is placed under the device profile segment, physical unit PV. PV1 refers to the pressure, PV2 refers to the temperature. So if I now just read PV1, the pressure, I get a code which is 00AB and 4 zeros. Looking that up in the operational guide, that gives me that this is a PSI setting. So right now the sensor delivers the pressure in PSI. But again, I could go and write 004E and 4 zeros to get it in bar and so forth and so forth. So all the codes are presented in the operation guide.